So everybody out there, it's YouTube live show. Today, my guest today is so exciting. It's Arthur Williams AIFD, and he's also a EMC. He's from Denver, Colorado. I'm going to let him tell you what his business name is and the name of the shop. So what is it, Arthur? What is the name of your shop?
My shop's name is Babylon, and this has been about 13 years, I think, so far. I keep losing track of how long it's been.
Yeah?
But yeah, we've moved once to the location we're at now. It's been really good here. Definitely like kind of a non-traditional, traditional retail store. So we do everything a normal shop would do, just a little bit edgier and different.
Yeah, I think the edgiest thing about your shop that I know of is your cool delivery van.
It's a little edgy.
I think so.
People definitely see it, and they think that we have a fleet of them because they see it all over town. And it's like, no, it's only one. We only have one van, but I'm glad you noticed it everywhere.
Well, it is definitely a very noticeable van. It's a wonderful, definitely edgy, and it really stands out. And I'm sure people are thrilled when that van pulls up in front of their house for a delivery. I think that's probably very exciting.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So how long have you had that van?
It's been 5 years now.
Yeah. It's probably a real sort of hallmark. Everybody knows. It's a great brand recognition, isn't it?
Oh yeah, and it's definitely worked for just the size we need. Because we do a lot of tall stuff, so we need taller in the back. And it's just been really good gas mileage, and now it's starting to we have to fix things now, but it's all paid for, so.
Oh well, that's good.
Time to replace everything on it.
Yeah. Well, so I'm excited because I see that you're going to be one of the featured presenters at the AIFD National Symposium this year in Seattle.
I am.
Yes, and that's only a couple weeks away. And I'm thinking you must be very busy trying to get your program together right now.
Oh yeah, it's based off of a residency program I did at the Denver Art Museum. Cool. So it's like all the pieces are kind of set as to what they've been. And I'm just kind of redoing them for a stage presentation. And there'll be a few surprises in there. But I'm basically recreating it and then driving out there on the 28th, I think we leave. And then putting everything back together and then doing it all again. Yeah.
So you've done some things with Denver Art Museum then.
Mm-hmm. I did a month-long residency. It's a Creative in Residence program. And when I started, I was like the third one. And since they've gone from a grant-based system to an actual, funded by the Art Museum, and they've also created kind of a mentorship program. So I'm going to be part of the mentor program as new creatives in residence kind of start their programs. So instead of just kind of diving in, we'll have a couple months to sit down and talk to them about what can happen in the museum, what can be brought in, problems, how to deal from creative people to museum staff, and just kind of streamline the whole process for people coming into the museum.
Oh wow, it's wonderful to see that you and as an artist and with flowers as a medium is being so visible at an art museum in a major city. I think that's just fantastic because it certainly paves the way for those who are thinking that there may be a future in something like this. And really, in many ways, you're not going to be only just a mentor for the Denver Art Museum, but you'll be really a mentor for many people who may in the future pursue something like this. So it's kind of a real leadership role, I think.
Definitely. And it's taught me a lot about collaboration. I've worked with a composer who is also providing music for my program.
Oh my God.
And I'm bringing in various people that have kind of been connected through this program. So there's a fashion designer that I've known here that's been doing stuff with the museum now. And she's going to be providing clothing for the show.
Oh, wow.
So it's just a lot of connections happened and continue happening with that. So
had you sort of forged some of these relationships early prior to getting involved with the museum, or is it something that's been ongoing with you for some time?
Some of them, some of the people I've known forever, And it just like getting into the museum and like when I did my residency, there was a theme that was called In Bloom. So it was all about flowers for the summer. And then their next year's programming was more about costumes, and they had Star Wars exhibit. So I connected them with my fashion designer friend who does very theatrical kind of couture, the more costume design. And she started doing like live studios where people would come in and they would kind of collaborate. She would create outfits with the public.
Wow.
So she's amazing, and her clothing's super amazing. So I'm excited to bring that with me too.
So you mentioned that there were a couple of other artists who were in this residency program prior to you. So what were their medium?
There's a composer. There's a kind of a rap group called the Flowbots. There was a hacker that just did computer hacking and all sorts of crazy, I don't even know how to explain it stuff.
Oh, wow. And this is sort of in the form of an art form.
And it's, the newest one's going to be a choreographer and dancer. And she does a lot of really kind of crazy out there performance pieces.
Wow.
So they're really bringing in all sorts of different artists and kind of opening the museum up to the public to experience it like less as a museum, more of an interactive experience.
That's wonderful. That's a real insightful museum that has a very good platform to draw more people in.
Oh, definitely.
Not just art lovers, but just people who are interested.
They want it to be less intimidating and less stuffy.
Yeah.
So they want to connect with the actual local art scene. So it's not like this place that maybe you'll get into someday, but it's like open for the actual artists in the area.
That is awesome. I mean, that's the smartest thing that I've ever heard. I mean, I think, there's a certain loftiness to a lot of art museums. And it seems like a certain class of people that attend museums. And I know that when there's art in bloom sort of occurring in different parts of the country, that it draws flower people in. But in this way, it's drawing people from all different walks of art and different sort of unusual forms of art. And so you get a really eclectic group of people, I would suppose.
Oh, yeah, very.
That's cool. So are there any questions from the audience yet?
No, we don't have any questions.
Okay, we don't have any questions yet. Okay, so.
But please ask questions if you have any. So.
Okay, so I have a question. So how do you describe your brand of floristry? Like if you were asked this question, like, because I think, a lot of people assume that you do something really different. But what do you do that's really different? And what do you do that is kind of more typical floristry?
I mean, I think the really different stuff would be like the fashion shoots and the model stuff. That's kind of become my marketing. I think I'm probably a lot more traditional than people may think. Like we do everyday arrangements and birthdays and funerals. We don't sell a product that's like, this is what you're getting. Everything's really customizable. So I've kind of named styles and made it super easy for people to order online that don't know anything about flowers. So they can just pick a style, pick a color scheme, a shape, a price range. So everything is really easy for someone that doesn't know anything about flowers, but we have all the creative freedom to make it the way it would work the best. So I think that's a more unusual way of selling things.
Right. So it makes sense that you have created a brand and a van that drives around the city that that's coming from the edgy florist, and that they feel really excited to order flowers from you by giving you dimensions and sort of parameter that you have set up, I guess, online to be able to order, and that they want to give you creative license because you're that edgy florist. Is that how it works?
Yeah, I mean, most of the orders really turn into a designer's choice. We have one we call it Countrypolitan, which is more gardeny, just more like symmetrical gardeny, interesting textures. We have Neotropica, which is very familiar to someone, I bet.
Yes.
And that's just a combination of tropical and temperate flowers. We do a lot of those, and Florinista, which is just more of a streamlined, modern look. It could be callas, it could be ginger, it could be whatever it needs to be at that moment, but it's just more streamlined look. So we've kind of given them names that people can identify with a little bit, so they're not intimidated. And if they don't know what a certain flower is, a certain style is, they still feel that they can order something and kind of have a concept of what it is. And they personalize all the other details. So we're always making what they want because we have parameters, but we don't have to go and run and grab something special for an order. Well, we still do that, of course, but but in general, we don't have to run. But
it's not like fulfilling an order as per picture.
Right.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times we'll just send pictures too, like if people want to see, like, can you send a picture of the finished product? And it's like, well, of course, we want you to be happy.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So what's the favorite at the store right now as far as selection of flowers? Like what's running through the store that's really exciting right now?
We've been getting it's a 9-bark called Diablo. That's like a really dark foliage with like little kind of pinkish flowers.
Okay.
We do get a lot of local stuff. All of our like curly willow, birch, blooming branches in the spring are all from like a local farmer that I've known for like 20 years now. So he just kind of shows up randomly and just brings way too much stuff that I always buy it.
So is there like a local grown kind of market there that people appreciate if you bring in a lot of local stuff, or?
Maybe a little bit. I think that's still moving into this area. I think people like the idea of foraged, which I might have an issue with the word because I'm like, well, where did it come from and how did you pay for it?
Yeah, exactly.
But I definitely like use branches as a base for all of our arrangements. So that's just made sense for me from just purely business reason. Like I can always have branches and they're a lot cheaper buying locally than shipping them in.
So are there any cut flowers that are available in and around Denver or through Colorado that's locally grown?
There's more happening. I usually get grasses, sunflowers, zinnias, sometimes veronica, just as a general like seasonal thing.
Right.
I know there are a lot of farmers now starting to do peonies and more of the kind of lush garden style, like boutique flowers that's happening a lot more now in the past few years. So that's definitely moving in. But there's a lot of education that has to happen to the public to kind of explain the how and why and everything behind that. Right.
I would think that, I mean, I remember that really Colorado at one point was such a big growing state, I guess, with carnations and that. I guess it has like the growing conditions that's perfect, with your sunlight, amount of light and whatever. So, I mean, it's sort of a no-brainer for more of the growing to come back, and especially if the trend sort of leads that direction. So what do you think about, like, do you design most of your designs in water or in foam? Or
mostly water. I'll do like a branch structure and like a leaf wrap. So the branches actually hold the leaves against the vase. So mostly water. Sometimes foam is like the only way to go for certain things, sometimes for parties. Definitely the orbs are very useful for events. But mostly water.
So and you do a fair amount of weddings?
Starting to pick up again. I stepped away from weddings a bit because they became just overwhelming. Like one year I did 50 and it just was a little too much. So I stepped back for a while and now I'm kind of moving back towards that.
I guess I was just curious as to what kind of bride would really like Babylon to do their flowers, because I would think that there must be quite a demand for you to do them.
I get a lot of really different people. It's like I've done some just very like, I just want red roses. I'm like, really? Okay. Yeah. And then I've had some brides that are just totally like, do whatever you feel like. And,
right.
And I've done some very interesting architectural designs for those brides.
Right.
I like those the best because they're just really open to new things.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that there's people, customers, brides, who identify with sort of your identity and would love to see what you come up with because they kind of trust you. Because you've got good history as far as that goes. So, Let's see. So you're actually going to be building some of your designs to get ready for Seattle. You're just getting prepped right now, and you're driving out there.
I am.
Yeah, so that's going to be kind of fun, huh?
Yeah, because I don't want to let too many of the secrets away.
Of course not.
Like some of the designs, like one of them was outside and basically just put into the ground.
Yeah.
So it's like I have to convert that into something that can be on stage and movable and kind of fit within the parameters of doors and elevators. So it's going to have to come apart and go back together pretty easy. So just kind of finding a new way to present those ideas that stay with the original presentation, but is more stage friendly.
Right. So are we going to get to see some, I mean, without giving it away, but surely we're going to see some floral fashion.
Oh yeah.
Like on the fashion side.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, because I mean, I know everybody's just anticipating this. I mean, you're so known for it. I mean, how long have you been doing that side? Because I've known you to be like one of the first to be doing it. That's kind of what I remember.
I started right before, actually, the shop that I worked at before I opened my store. I did my first like model, and then literally the next day I got laid off.
Oh,
so it was like,
really?
Fine. So that was like the first like in public model that I had ever done. And then I got laid off, and then I kind of went crazy and decided, I want to do this for myself. Like I worked so hard. Why should I be doing this for someone else when I could just do it?
Yeah.
So it took me 8 months to open a store. And I don't know what sort of insanity happened, but I basically was just started doing corporates, put my business proposal together, got everything in line, and opened the store.
Wow.
And I don't know how I did that, because I don't know if I could do that again.
Well, it took a lot of guts, and you really sort of dove right into it. I didn't know that you worked in a flower shop for somebody else before. I did not know that.
I did. I worked, it was a very traditional shop, very like high volume, just make 3 of everything all day long. So, I mean, and I had started there without really a true floral design background. I had a gardening and landscape was kind of where I came from, and then I had more of a background in photography and sculpture. So I had worked at a greenhouse and became their cut flower buyer, did landscaping, and then season ended with landscaping, and I was just kind of, well, what should I do now? And I saw a flower shop next to Starbucks, of course, because I'm always at Starbucks. And they were hiring, and I was like, I could do that. And I went in and I made arrangements, and they sold them, and they hired me.
Oh, wow. So
that was the official start.
So how long did you work for a flower shop before you started your own shop then?
It was like 4 or 5 years.
Really? I didn't realize that. Oh my goodness.
And it was very
must have been a baby when you started.
Oh yeah. It was very cut off from like floral design world. So like I had no idea about AIFD. I had no idea about like the scope of floral design. Because that was also pretty much before like too much happened with the internet. So it was like, oh, there's this other world out there.
Yeah. But you kind of sort of grabbed onto that whole, the internet and the social media fairly early, right?
Yeah, as soon as I opened my store, like I didn't even have a computer before I opened the store. I was very anti-technology. So opened the store, had to get a computer, had to figure it out. And then it's changed so fast. It was like, have to have a website, have to know about the internet, have to do social marketing. So it all just kind of happened at once. But it's important to do all of those things to be recognized.
For sure. I mean, your marketing is so strong. It's really, really, really good. I think that's something that's kind of missing in the flower business, because everybody's so caught up in design, and they forget to do the marketing, sell. And I think you've got a pretty amazing balance of the two sides. I think that's the key to your success, I think. Don't you think?
Oh, yeah. Because I don't really pay for anything like traditional marketing. It's like everything is like I'll try to have it linked back to the website or somehow be online. So it just kind of, the momentum of itself kind of keeps it going. Yeah.
No, that's good. So your background in landscaping in that surely helps a lot in your business and what you do, right? Yeah.
When I first opened, I actually did a lot more garden design and just maintenance of gardens.
Oh, really?
So that kind of was part of the business more in the beginning. And then once weddings kind of took over, it was like, okay, I have to calm down the gardening side and focus more on the store side. But I still have a few clients that I'll go and do balcony gardens or like help out with stuff.
I know how passionate you are about gardening because I've seen your own personal garden and how much you care for it and how beautiful it is. So, and I really always felt that. I mean, I come from the growing side as well, so I know how strong that knowledge of that helps in design, in composition, knowing how they grew and what they prefer and what goes good with what. And I mean, all the elements and principles of design applies to landscaping as it does in floral design, right?
Oh yeah, and you have an added kind of interaction with the plants because you can put things in wrong areas and it will kind of right themselves. Like things will overtake other things, and it's like you have to find that balance between your materials as they're growing too. And they just will kind of do that without you. But you have to kind of step in every once in a while and like break it up, like leave each other alone.
So are there any questions, Colin?
Yeah, we have one question from Facebook.
Okay.
Let's pull it up here.
Excellent.
I was just in the middle of refreshing the page when you asked, so it's
okay.
Internet's not the fastest.
Yeah.
Katrina Riley says, are there any classes or things for groups to do floral arrangements when they come through the museum? I'm guessing in Denver, or I'm not sure. Jeez.
Not specifically there. I'm sure that's something we could probably work on, but there's so many rules and regulations of what can come into the museum. When I was there, everything, like all wood that was over a certain diameter had to be frozen for at least 2 weeks. So I had to kind of plan out everything like a month before, get everything in 2 weeks ahead of time before I actually needed to use it. So any wood, absolutely no dirt, no moss, no live plants. I brought in preserved moss, which was frozen also, just to make sure there's absolutely no way I could bring in any bacteria or mold to the museum.
So when you say frozen, so they just have to be frozen before they come in?
Yeah, they have a gigantic freezer that they'll, like paintings will go through, any textiles, any old wood, anything like any recycled materials would definitely have to go through.
Really?
New treated wood could be in the museum for a few hours. So on one of my installations, I did a whole installation that could only be in a gallery for 4 hours. So everything had to be really easy to move. All my flowers were in water tubes, just very puzzle pieced together. So as far as classes there, probably not at this moment, but probably for the future once they're also doing a remodeling project. So space has kind of been limited down a little bit. So that could be something that could happen later in the future. I hope that answers.
Yeah, actually, I mean, it's and part of the mentorship, I mean, not just only in the museum, but mentorship to those people who are really interested in sort of following in your footsteps, or at least in approaching in design. That would be an awesome thing for you to organize, so that you can sort of continue that tradition of, having flower as an art form be coordinated into the museum system. I mean, I think that you've just made a huge leap where so many places people have not been able to. So that's a real keeper, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Are there any other questions, Colin?
Yep, we have a question from Greg Orofino. He says, question on how Arthur stages and takes pictures for the customer.
We have just in the front of the store. So I should explain. The front of the store is very decorative and just kind of a seating area and some retail and one cooler. And then the back of the store is very industrial, like as you can see behind me, like supplies and tables and all business. So we usually just take a picture in the front of the store. We have a kind kind of a nice soji screen in the front with just a green background. So you get a little bit of the edges of like what's going on in the store, but it's pretty clear. So just a very basic photo, nothing too complicated.
So do you do a lot of photography? Like whenever you do anything really cool, do you make sure you take a picture of it and to be able to post it or to at least file it so that you have it?
I try to. It just depends on what it is. And like one of the events I did at the museum, we didn't have a photographer from the museum, so I brought in my own. So anything that's like super fancy, I try to get good images from. I got better camera for myself because I would take horrible pictures at events and horribly lit. So I got a better camera just so I could make sure to capture at least something I could edit and make appear better.
Right.
Because I was just so bad about like taking quick pictures and then I would get back and be like, oh, I can't really see anything. It's really bad. So I definitely try to get all the most important stuff.
Yeah. So do you then, like these photos that you would take for a customer, for instance, like on your shoji screen, is it upon request that you supply these photos, or is that part of the order?
It's just by request.
That's good. So you have it on record.
Yeah, and it's like usually our customers just trust us, like do whatever. But a lot of times we'll get people from like small towns, or they're like, we never ordered from you. Can you send us a picture? Right. So it's just an easy way to connect with them and be like, you know, we're not a big giant faceless business. We're actually the people you talk to, and we're actually sending you a picture of what you ordered.
Yeah.
So just good connection with people.
No, that's great. I hope that answered questions for Greg. Hello, Greg. Is there anybody else out there, Colin?
Yeah, question? Katrina asked another question. She says, do you have any suggestions for your headpieces mechanics specifically?
Well, I'm going to actually show that on stage at Symposium. So that I think will probably be the first big scale secret reveal.
Oh, that's cool.
But most of my headpieces are actually made on the model. So instead of being like a hat that can be removed, it's actually worked into their hair as the base structure. So that's kind of the main difference with what I do.
Well, I guess what I've seen with what you do, the flower stays on beautifully because it's obviously built into it rather than sitting on top and attached in some way. And so that's going to be a great reveal at Symposium for people to be able to see that inside sort of mechanics of it all. I think that's very exciting.
And it's really simple. I think a lot of times, like the most simple, basic, easiest way to do something really works out the best. And I've really been drawn by tribal cultures that throughout history have adorned themselves with flowers just in the simplest way possible. So it's like translating that kind of simplicity into modern design, I guess, is one of my favorite things.
Yeah, actually, I mean, it makes sense to utilize some of what's been successful for these tribal groups, and that I remember seeing. I remember seeing the book that you shared with me one time, and then I also saw a documentary on the tribe in the Papua New Guinea that's really kind of really into all the face painting and actually use some flowers. And that's really cool. That's truly an inspiration. The fascination with flowers has been going on for a long, long time. It's not just something that we come up with, that's for sure, right?
Oh yeah. Flower crowns were not the first thing on people's heads.
Yeah. Something pretty, you want to wear it. Okay, are there any other
we
questions?
just have a follow-up from Katrina on that question, asking, do you have help or a team to help with setup?
Like for hair and makeup or actual stage?
I guess for the headpieces, it was part of that question. So
I usually, like in general, work with a hair person, just because I obviously am not a hair person. Just for the base structure. So we're working on finding people right now in Seattle. My friend Gina's out there now, so she's kind of coordinating that side of things for me. But we'll have definitely like a hair and makeup team.
So basically, when you're putting on like a fashion show like you have in the past in Denver, Like, what's the size of your team that puts this together? Who does it involve?
I mean, the biggest one we did, we had 8 models, and we started hair and makeup at like 9 in the morning, and kind of got the base structures for everyone done and base kind of start of makeup, and then moved to the venue probably like 5 or 6 that night, and then started doing flowers then for like a 9 o'clock show. So it's, for those kind of fashion shows, it's definitely structure based. So everything has to be really stable. And then it's a timing with what flowers can be out of water for how long. Because for the most part, I'll use things that don't need a water source for like 4 or 5 hours. But if there is anything that needs like a water tube or something, we'll have it hidden within the structure. So that's kind of the biggest show we did, and it's an all-day affair. But it just really depends on what it is. It's usually best to have like 2 to 3 designers helping, and just kind of hair and makeup people on staff, just to make sure if anything goes wrong, we can like quickly fix it. There's a lot of collaboration too.
That's great.
I hope I'm answering questions. I just keep talking.
Yeah. No, but I think that's great. And so you usually have like, a couple people on hand sort of to prep for you, and that knows what you do and what you like.
Yeah, I mean, mostly with hair, because I kind of look at it like, these are the shapes I want to incorporate. How can we make them the most stable? And I let the hair people decide how is that going to be the most stable. So it's like, here's the shapes I want. Let's make it work. And then once the base structure is down, then I have a lot of areas and places to place things and hide things. But it's not so strict. Like, I don't want like put 2 things here no matter what. It's like put things where they work. And it depends on how long the model's hair is, or if you have to have extensions. So it's a lot of give and take. It's like, so here's my idea, take it, make it work, I'll add to it, and then it becomes what it becomes.
Right. So does it start out with sketches?
No.
So you just go with the flow?
Yeah, it's usually more about color for me, and maybe an overall feel. So that kind of, the color dictates the flowers dictate, like, does it need a water source? How do we have to build it? And then those kind of needs of the flowers dictate the overall shape and design, like the final design.
That's cool. So you published like a book, I'm thinking it's like a couple of years ago, right? Like you printed some. And that was like 10 years at that point that you had been doing this, the flowers with hair and fashion.
Yeah, that was kind of the fun stuff from the past 10 years of the shop.
Yeah. So you've been doing this a while. I mean, now, people are kind of getting onto it the last few years, for sure, maybe up to 5 years, but you've been on this for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Have you made some like different new discoveries as you've been working on this?
I mean, that's a tough one, because I tend to be like, a lot of my design is dictated on time and budget too. Mm-hmm. So from that aspect, like a lot of my style and for fashion has been dictated by, you know, how long does it last, and like no budget or no help or something. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of dictated my style. Mm-hmm. So I think that style, like there's just a million different directions it could go, and that's all just based on time. Mm-hmm. But I think like what defines my work is kind of that, like, I don't know, quick turnaround. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it's like, this has to become this really fast, mm-hmm. and this is the best way to do it. Right. So it's like, if I had a lot more time, I think in general, I would be very dangerous.
Yeah, but the thing is, that's what keeps it such a strong floristry, because floristry is about that time crunch and that, you know, limited this or limited that, and how, what can you produce in that limited budget, limited time, limited all of that. And
definitely,
we've always come through with some, you know, just beautiful, extravagant, you know, innovative. I mean, I can think of all kinds of words that describe your work. It's pretty amazing. And so that's what we get to see at Symposium. That's kind of, this is going to be the reveal, right?
Yep. Now you're making me nervous.
No, but I mean, I know you will far surpass the expectation because you always do. That's the exciting part of what you do every time I've seen you do it. So any other questions, Colin?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment?
Well,
let's just talk about.
Keep going, yeah.
Okay. So what do you have up the pipe, like as far as any kind of projects that's coming up that's exciting to you, other than, I know you've been preoccupied with Symposium, but anything else exciting?
I do have a workshop booked in Seattle in October with Lola Creative. So that'll be like my first official, like, just me workshop.
Yeah. So what's the theme?
I really want to do like tension and kind of like concepts with gender, because that's one thing that EMC really taught me. It's like it really defined to me what I do. So I really want to focus more on that and just like bringing attention to people's work and how to analyze their customers based on flower choices and kind of gender stereotypes. That
is so good. You know, it is so good that you're doing it and still, you know, in reality of the business, because I think, you know, so many people get really carried away. In fact, you know, like when I was working with John Haynes and Ali Charisma, the fashion designer, you know, we often talk about, you know, how people get so carried away with, you know, whether it's the fashion, flowers or whatever, and it becomes like beyond the reality of it. So it's just a fantasy, you know, which then just becomes just our own project, and it's not doing it for anybody but ourselves. And I think that's one of the things that's really always fascinated me with what you do, is everything you do relates to some parts of your business. And it sounds like this workshop is going to help the students relate what you're going to teach to be part of what they can do for their business. That's just fantastic.
I think being able to define things to yourself about what you do really, I mean, it just totally helps your business.
Yes.
It's like my customers can tell my work, and I was like, well, how can they tell? Like, what is it that everyone can see that I can't define? And that's really something that like EMC taught me, is just what I'm doing, like how to define it. And now I'm like, I know I do that, but I had no words for it. But now I can teach other people about it.
Well, that's awesome. So that it really kind of give you a real true definition of what you do that then you can sell.
Definitely.
Oh, that's awesome. That is a great use of the knowledge. That's fantastic. So you're gonna basically base your workshop on that. And so what is it? How many days for the workshop?
I think it's just gonna be one day. We're still working on all the details.
And it's in Seattle. And when is it gonna be?
It is gonna be, I think, on the 16th or 17th
of
October.
Oh, okay, excellent, fantastic. Are we able to know where or what? Is that a possibility, or is that?
Oh yeah. Once I get all the details, and we'll send out Facebook like.
Oh, that's awesome. And if people want to also follow up, where could they look for? Is there like a website?
We'll probably do it on my blog.
Okay.
So just attached to my website, there's a blog, and that actually attaches to my business Facebook too.
Oh, that's awesome. So are you hoping to do more of these kind of workshops?
Yeah, I think I need to get out from my store also, just to get see what's outside. But I think,
you've been very
really
dedicated to your business, for sure.
Oh yeah, so just to be able to get out and like experience other cities and other people, and just like have some life experiences to bring back with some inspiration for myself too.
No, I think that's very true. I think it's always good to get out, because you get a new fresh look when you come back in. I think that's a real important thing. And I think it's wonderful that you're going to be offering your knowledge because with you know, you have a very successful business. You've done a great job. And like I say, you know, it's not just the design, but it's also the marketing side of it. I think, you know, that combination has been so strong. So for people to have an opportunity to work with you, I think it's going to be a wonderful opportunity for sure. So anything, Colin?
Sorry, I just had to unmute myself. I think that is, we might have one more.
Okay.
We have a question from Brenna Kwan. She
Oh,
says,
hi,
"Hi
Brenna.
Arthur, hi Hitomi. Arthur, when you are coming up with your structures / construction for your installations, do you typically begin with a theme, materials you want to build with, or perhaps a technique to experiment with?"
So with this, I actually did the residency 2 years ago and kind of had to work all of those details out with the museum. So when it was like, okay, you should do the symposium program, I was like, I want to base it off of this residency. I have like video from it. I have a lot of experience from it. I know like I could do the whole thing absolutely by myself if I had to. And I didn't want to do like a surprise, like let's figure something out right before. So I definitely wanted to do something I was comfortable with and show how it related in real life, and then make those concepts like a stage presentation, like specifically stage oriented. Because a lot of my constructions were based like an hour in a gallery or hanging from the ceiling or actually in dirt outside. So just taking those concepts, keeping them pretty accurate to what I did, showcase what happened and kind of the new form of them. So nothing too crazy outside of the box from what I already did, but it's also a process that will change as we get there, as we see what materials we have to work with and who shows up to help and all those little details.
Well, the interesting thing about your program, though, however, I think is that usually people in the floral industry, when they do a program, they do it as a, sort of a preempt to perhaps maybe someday putting something in the museum or have an opportunity to showcase in a public place. And the interesting thing is that you've kind of done it the other way around. You've already got the great exposure publicly in the Denver Art Museum, and then you're bringing that back and to showcase what's being done. And so interesting, because I think you always do out of the box. It's not like you do the ordinary ever.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of, I think that's what really gives your program so much validity, is that it's already being validated by the outside, and you're bringing it in and showing and sharing with us what is possible if you step outside. And I think that's the real big lesson that is going to be shared, I think, at the symposium.
Well, there's so many, like, by having done it already, I guess there's so many things I can share behind the scenes, just the logistics of what can be in the museum, what could be in the museum, why haven't they done stuff like that? And then the choices of things I did and how I constructed them for the museum. I just have more information to share by having done it. And I think that's really more important than showing just design and not really having like, oh, you could do this here or there. But I think showing that this is what happened and these are the choices that I chose to make these things happen just gives me more information to share with everyone.
That's fabulous. So how difficult was it for you when you were going through that process, presenting to the museum? Were they open to pretty much everything that you wanted to do, or other than the restrictions of product and freezing things and all that kind of stuff? But were they open to a lot of what you had to say, what you wanted to do?
Oh yeah, it was just finding a way that they felt safe with what I was bringing in. Mm-hmm. Because when I got the original list of like what's not allowed, I was like, but this is all the fun stuff. This is everything that I do. Like no bones, no moss, no plants, no dirt, no branches. And then it was like, okay, no branches over a certain diameter. And then it became, oh, I could freeze them. So just kind of working with the museum and finding a way to take my concepts and stay true to them and still make it work. Because a lot of the things I did were based off of art, like in specific galleries. And by the time I started my residency, some of that art had moved. Mm-hmm. So it was like, okay, well, I love the space. How can I relate the previous concept to the new space mm-hmm. and make that work without giving up the space or the concept? So, I mean, a lot of that just happened, like my outdoor piece, I added things to from another section of the gallery because I didn't want to have to deal with fire marshal and extra budgeting restraints of building certain things. So it was a give and take, but they were very open to my concepts. We had to actually narrow stuff down.
So as far as when you were in the construction mode, were there people watching? Like, was any of that part of the program is for people to view how you were doing it, or is it just the final unveil?
There's certain pieces, like my outdoor piece, we kind of grouped the construction of part of it into an event that was already happening.
Wow.
So the public could come and kind of talk to me and see what we were doing. I did have a 1 day a week pop-up studio that we created. Nice. And I would work on whatever piece I was doing in the gallery there, and then install it and then do tours of the pieces. So each week I would add a new piece, refresh the old piece, do like a tag along tour, and then kind of work in my space. So it's very, cool. Very interactive.
So you were able to kind of really get the reaction of some of the people that were like visitors.
Oh yeah.
And how did that help you kind of, strengthen the concepts further for in the future, like just talking to the visitors?
I mean, there was no question of you're an artist. There was questions, people didn't think the flowers were real. So that happened several times. But just by being in the museum, it's like people automatically accepted you as an artist.
Yes.
And that was really refreshing. That's something I really needed at that time, because it's like retail is really hard and people argue with you, and they're like, we have to like figure out people a lot of times and try to tell people like, I am qualified to make your arrangement.
Yeah.
So it's like you have that dynamic in retail, and then all of a sudden you're in a museum and it's like, you're obviously an artist. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
And it was just a very different dialogue and very, very interesting.
Oh, it's much more respectful.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. There's no more arguing about how to do it.
Right.
You know how some customers are, right? Okay. So any questions? Any further?
I think that's it. We have a couple comments. Gina McGlacio says, so excited for your presentation. Katrina says, thank you for sharing your talent. And I want to just thank everybody for asking their questions. And I'll ask one thing, where can people find you on social media? If you want to give your little plug in your social media.
I mean, the store is just babylonfloral.com. And then there's like a Babylon Facebook page that actually goes right to the blog. And then I'm on Instagram, just Babylon Floral Design. I think Instagram's kind of my favorite because you can just pop things right to Facebook. I tend to do Instagram more, I think, and then just kind of let it go to Facebook too. But I think that's all. And then I have a regular Facebook page too. That's easily. And
you said you have a blog on your website?
Yeah, and that's just it's my Facebook, or my business Facebook, loads directly to the blog. So anything I post there just goes right to the blog.
So if anybody's looking out for what you're up to next, that's the place to go?
It should be. I need to be better about that too. I think I tend to do more on my personal page than the business, just because there's more people actively watching that.
Right, that's true. That's true.
So I'll try to do it in as many places as possible.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that people are going to be very anxious to know when you're doing workshops, because I think that's going to be very exciting. And so they're going to be looking for it. So you just better get in the habit, Arthur, of getting it posted and making sure that people can find it for sure.
I will.
That's kind of a very exciting sort of phase of your career that you're going to be teaching. I think that's going to be fantastic.
So. I think I'm a more abstract thinker. So I think I want to share that with people, and just like, you don't have to be so like, this is this. It's like, there's so many aspects to what flowers can be, and you don't have to think of them as just flowers. And it doesn't have to be like mass quantities of flowers. It could just be very simple and to the point. So just sharing the different ways I think about things is really important to me.
Yeah. Well, I think people are always anxious to work with a teacher that has that out of the box kind of mentality, because I think everyone at some point wishes that they can step outside the box. It's just that, you know, they build their box and the wall so high that they stay within, but, you know, to be exposed to somebody who constantly think outside the box can be a very encouraging process for some of these people who want that little bit of freedom. Will you do that for them?
I will. The
Oh, good.
funny thing is, there will be boxes at Symposium.
Oh, yeah.
So that's all I'm going to say.
No, that's going to be exciting. What day is it going to be, your program?
That's on July 3rd at 3:15.
Ah, excellent. So everybody needs to take note. And I mean, the symposium is going to be fabulous, but Arthur's program is going to be really fabulous. I just know it. And it's very exciting that he's going to be on stage to present and do this fantastic reveal. So any other questions from you, Colin?
That's it.
That's it? Well, let's see. What else can I ask you before we finish? Because we're getting close to wrapping up. I'm so thrilled that we're doing this so that everybody can sort of get a little bit of an overview of what you've been up to and to have certain expectation. I know that word is a little scary. It's always been a thing for me too. You know, what are people's expectation? But I know that you never let people down because you always come up with something awesome. So with that, you know, anticipation of this program that you're about to do. The other thing I guess I wanted to mention is that you've been actually featured in several magazines too, because I was looking at it, some photos from Nacre magazine, the French magazine. That was a pretty nice spread they gave you.
Yeah, there's been a couple of those actually.
You did a couple of those?
Yeah, there was the original one that was like 7 or 8 pages. And then they asked us to do a cover. We did a cover, and then that image ended up being the cover for my book, and then ended up in the International Floral Art Annual.
Right. Yeah, you've done that too.
Was just a photo shoot that I worked with a local jewelry designer, and I did headpieces that kind of felt very similar to her jewelry style, and then they published that as well.
Wow.
So they've been very, very nice.
Yeah, no, that sort of kind of, well, the participation in that magazine as well as the book, I think kind of put you on the world stage. People really started to take notice. I mean, if they hadn't found you on social media already, but that sort of set everybody to take note. And so that's really kind of cool.
Yes, definitely.
And so, and we're still planning to do the Bali workshop as well, somewhere down the line when we actually figure out, because we postponed it, but that's something that we really want to do with you too, Arthur, because I mean, that's where there's fabulous dresses and there's fabulous models, and it's all, you know, it's just a perfect location for us to do a workshop. So that's something also down the pipe that we'll have to get on date. So that's very exciting as well. So looking forward to seeing your program, Arthur.
I have one more question that's kind of good to wrap things up. So
okay.
Brenna asks again, I may have missed this from the beginning of your stream, but just curious, how did you two first connect? I remember you bringing Arthur to Vancouver for Flora, where I was wowed by his work.
It was, well, I got a scholarship and did the Teleflora Education Center.
Yeah.
And then that was like within 1 or 2 years of opening the shop. And then you chased me down in the airport afterwards and invited me to the Conference for the Creative Mind.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So
yeah, because that's what kind of, that's where I sort of forged friendship for sure. Yeah, that's right. You came to that, the Education Center. That's right. That's when I first met you. And then I knew you were Colorado, and I know that, you know, when John and I, when we used to do, well, we still do, except for John now is in Bali, but we still do the TAOS, the conference, the Survival of the Creative Mind. And I knew that, like, John used to drive down from Denver, and I'm thinking, it's a drivable distance for you to come on down. And you've been sort of repeat attendee there for multiple times. And, you know, that's the place that we think outside of the box as much as we can. That's right.
Actually,
Yeah.
let me grab this picture that I have real quick.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's right. He's come multiple times. So yeah, that's when we do a lot of our brainstorming. I mean, you kind of like to collect these wonderful creative beings.
Oops, that's
Okay,
weird.
so what you got?
Oh, let's see. Where's my camera? Can we see this? I might have to post this on Facebook because
All
I
right.
can't figure this out. Remember
Oh.
that?
Oh my goodness. Wow, I'm from the Chemical Education Center the first time?
Yep.
Oh goodness. That's like what, 10 plus years ago, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'll post that.
That's awesome. Well, I've certainly enjoyed all these years. I mean, meeting Arthur, and then all these years sort of, I guess, just brainstorming, think tanking. I mean, you know, these wonderful people that I meet, former students, but they become just great friends to discuss design with and experiment and inspire each other and create more beautiful things. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Definitely. And just getting, I think, that out to the world, because I think that's like really important, is like all the new people in the industry that are just kind of floating around. Everyone needs to kind of connect and like make these sorts of relationships happen, because those combinations of people that are so different yet so similar really change everything.
Yeah, so we're going to be the game changers, right?
Yes.
Yay. No, I think that's wonderful. Well, thank you, Arthur, for joining us. You know, I know that there's going to be a lot of people watching this particular tape afterwards, because it's going to be on there available for anyone to see this particular live show. And thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule. I know you were just in the middle of getting ready for Seattle, so I appreciate you taking your time. Thanks.
Oh, definitely. And we'll see you soon.
and we'll see you at Seattle.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye.